It was just another late night at the office, the kind where the fluorescent lights buzz a little too loudly and the emptiness of the building seems to echo with every step you take. I'd been working on the Henderson project for weeks now, pushing through deadlines that seemed impossible, surviving on coffee that tasted more like motor oil with each passing hour. The clock on my computer screen read 11:58 p.m. when I finally saved the last document and shut everything down. 2 minutes to midnight. 2 minutes until another day would technically begin, though it felt like this one had never really ended. The office was on the 32nd floor of the Grayson building, one of those sleek glass and steel structures that dominated the downtown skyline. During the day, it was a hive of activity, hundreds of professionals buzzing around with purpose. But at midnight, it was a ghost town, with only the occasional security guard making rounds and the cleaning staff quietly going about their work. I gathered my things slowly, in no particular rush to get home to an empty apartment. My colleagues had all left hours ago, heading to their families or social lives that seemed to exist in some parallel universe to mine. All except for him, Daniel Parker. We'd been working together on the Henderson account for 3 months now, thrown together by our boss who claimed we'd make the perfect team. What our boss didn't account for was the electricity that seemed to crackle in the air whenever we were alone together. Daniel was everything I wasn't: confident, effortlessly charming, the kind of person who could walk into a room and immediately command attention without saying a word. I was more of a background person, preferring to let my work speak for itself rather than drawing attention to my presence. We were opposites in almost every way, yet something about him pulled at me, like gravity, impossible to resist, but equally impossible to acknowledge. I heard the soft click of his office door closing just as I was slinging my bag over my shoulder. My heart did that ridiculous little jump it always did when I knew he was near. I pretended to be engrossed in checking my phone as his footsteps approached, burning the midnight oil again. His voice was low, slightly raspy from the long day. I looked up, trying to appear casual, as if my pulse hadn't just quickened at the sound of his voice. "Someone has to make sure this project doesn't crash and burn," I replied, aiming for professional banter but hearing the slight tremor in my own voice. Daniel smiled, that slow, deliberate smile that always made me feel like I was the only person in his world at that moment. "Well, I'm glad it's you. I wouldn't trust anyone else with it," he said, his eyes holding mine a beat longer than necessary. I broke the gaze first, always the first to look away. We walked together toward the elevator in companionable silence, the kind that feels both comfortable and charged with unspoken words. The office was eerily quiet, our footsteps muffled by the industrial carpet. The soft ping of the elevator arriving broke the silence, and we both stepped inside. The elevator doors closed with a soft whoosh, sealing us in this small metal box together. 32 floors to go. Approximately 45 seconds of being alone together in this confined space. I had made this calculation before, embarrassingly enough. 45 seconds of trying not to notice the way his cologne smelled like cedar and something distinctly him. 45 seconds of pretending I wasn't hyper-aware of every inch of space between us. "Long day, huh?" he said, leaning against the wall of the elevator, his suit jacket unbuttoned, tie loosened. He looked rumpled in the most appealing way possible, like a magazine ad for expensive whiskey. "The longest," I agreed, staring at the illuminated numbers as they slowly decreased. 28, 27, 26. "You know, we've been working together for 3 months now, and I still feel like I barely know you," Daniel said, turning slightly to face me. "Outside of work, I mean." I shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to respond. What could I say? That I deliberately kept a professional distance because I was afraid of what might happen if I didn't? That sometimes I caught myself daydreaming about him in meetings and had to physically shake myself back to reality? "I'm not that interesting outside of work," I finally said, aiming for self-deprecating humor. "Just the usual Netflix, occasional gym visits to justify the amount of takeout I eat, calling my mom on Sundays." He chuckled, and the sound warmed something inside me. "I find that hard to believe. I think there's a lot more to you than you let on." Before I could respond, the lights in the elevator flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. The elevator jerked to a halt, throwing me slightly off balance. I felt Daniel's hand on my arm, steadying me in the darkness. "You okay?" His voice was closer now, concern evident in his tone. Yeah, just surprised, I said, trying to ignore the warmth of his hand through the fabric of my shirt. Power outage. Seems like it, he replied. A moment later, the emergency lights came on, bathing the elevator in a soft, bluish glow. It wasn't much, but it was enough to see his face, now much closer to mine than it had been before. His hand was still on my arm, and neither of us seemed in a hurry to change that. We stood there, frozen in this strange twilight moment. The normal rules of our professional relationship suddenly suspended in this unexpected circumstance. I guess we should call for help, I said, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. I reached for the emergency phone, but Daniel's voice stopped me. Wait, he said softly. Just wait a second. I turned to look at him, confused. His expression was intense, focused entirely on me in a way that made my breath catch. Slowly, deliberately, he reached past me and pressed the stop button on the elevator panel. What are you doing? I asked, though part of me already knew, had perhaps always known this moment was inevitable. Something I've wanted to do for 3 months, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. And then, in the softest breath, he said my name. Not my professional name, not the name colleagues used in meetings and emails. My real name, the one friends and family used, the one that sounded different somehow when he said it, like a secret shared between us. Time seemed to stop in that moment, the world outside this elevator ceasing to exist. There was only this, his eyes on mine, the soft glow of emergency lights, the sound of our breathing in the enclosed space. I've been trying to keep things professional, he continued, his voice low and intimate. But every day it gets harder. Every meeting, every late night working side by side, every coffee run. I find myself looking for excuses to be near you. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. The confession I had never expected to hear hung in the air between us, changing everything and nothing all at once. We work together, I said weakly, the last rational part of my brain making one final attempt at self-preservation. It's complicated. Life is complicated, he countered, taking a small step closer. But some things are simple. How I feel when I'm with you. That's simple. I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the rise and fall of his chest as he breathed. The elevator felt smaller suddenly, the air between us charged with possibility. And how do you feel? I asked, surprising myself with my boldness. His eyes softened, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like everything before this was just leading me here, to this moment, with you. The words hung between us, beautiful and terrifying in their honesty. I had spent months building walls, creating distance, telling myself that what I felt was one-sided and inappropriate. And now here he was, tearing those walls down with a few simple words. I've been fighting this, I admitted, my voice barely audible. Every day, every moment we're together. I thought it was just me, that I was imagining the way you sometimes look at me. You weren't imagining anything, he said, reaching out slowly to brush a strand of hair from my face. His fingers lingered, tracing a gentle path along my cheekbone. I've been trying to tell you in 1,000 small ways. I just wasn't sure if you were ready to hear it. The touch of his fingers against my skin sent a shiver down my spine. This moment felt suspended in time, fragile and precious. Part of me was afraid to move, to speak, to do anything that might break the spell. What happens now? I asked, the practical question grounding me in reality even as everything else felt dreamlike. Daniel's smile deepened, reaching his eyes. Now we stop pretending. We stop walking on eggshells around each other. We see where this goes, day by day. And work? Our colleagues. The Henderson Project? The questions tumbled out, my mind racing ahead to all the potential complications. We're adults, he said simply. We can be professional at work and still explore what's happening between us. Unless. His confidence faltered for the first time. Unless you don't want to. The vulnerability in his expression tugged at something deep inside me. This man who always seemed so self-assured, so in control, was now showing me a side of himself few people ever saw. It was a gift, this moment of honesty, and I realized I couldn't respond with anything less. I do want to, I said, the words feeling like a release after months of holding back. I've wanted to since that first project meeting when you challenged my marketing strategy, and then sent me that apology email at midnight. He laughed softly, the sound filling the small space between us. That email took me 2 hours to write. I kept changing it, worried I'd come across as arrogant or dismissive. You came across as passionate and thoughtful, I said, smiling at the memory. It was the first time I realized you were more than just the confident persona you show everyone else. His hand moved from my face to my shoulder, then down my arm, leaving a trail of warmth in its wake. There's so much I want to tell you, so much I want to know about you. The real you, not just the professional version. The air between us seemed to thicken, the small space of the elevator becoming even smaller as he leaned in slightly. I could smell his cologne more strongly now, could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes that I'd never noticed before. Tell me something no one at work knows about you, he said, his voice low and intimate. Something real. I hesitated, considering what to share. There were so many layers to peel back, so many versions of myself I kept hidden from my professional life. But in this suspended moment, with the world outside temporarily forgotten, I wanted to give him something true. I write poetry, I said finally, feeling strangely vulnerable in the admission. Not good poetry, probably, but it helps me process things. I have notebooks full of it at home. His eyes lit up with genuine interest. Will you show me sometime? The question was simple, but loaded with implication. Sometime meant a future, meant moments beyond this elevator, meant a door opening to possibilities I had barely allowed myself to imagine. Maybe, I said, the single word a promise of sorts. Your turn. Tell me something real. Daniel took a deep breath, his expression turning more serious. I almost quit last month. The corporate world sometimes feels like it's draining the life out of me. The only thing that kept me coming back every day was knowing I'd see you. The confession hung in the air between us, weighty and significant. I had no idea he'd been struggling, had always envied his apparent ease in navigating office politics and client demands. Why didn't you say anything? I asked softly. Professional boundaries, he said with a small, rueful smile. The same reason we've both been pretending there's nothing between us for months. I nodded, understanding completely. We had both been playing parts, maintaining the facade of purely professional colleagues, while something much deeper simmered beneath the surface. I'm glad you stayed, I said simply, meaning it more than he could know. So am I, he replied, his gaze dropping briefly to my lips before meeting my eyes again. The intention was clear, the question unspoken but hanging in the air between us. My heart raced as I gave the slightest nod, permission and invitation wrapped in one small movement. Daniel closed the remaining distance between us slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. But pulling away was the furthest thing from my mind as his lips finally met mine, soft and questioning at first, then more insistent as I responded. The kiss was everything I had imagined in my most private thoughts and nothing like I expected all at once. His hand came up to cup my face, holding me as if I were something precious, something he'd been waiting for. I found myself reaching for him too, my fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt, anchoring myself in this moment that felt both surreal and more real than anything I'd experienced before. Time lost all meaning as we stood there, wrapped in each other, the boundaries we'd so carefully maintained for months dissolving with each passing second. The kiss deepened, years of unspoken feelings and suppressed desire pouring out in this one perfect moment. When we finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Daniel rested his forehead against mine, his eyes closed as if savoring the moment. I've been wanting to do that since the Henderson pitch meeting when you stood up to the client and defended my design concept, he murmured, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I laughed softly, remembering that day clearly. That was 2 months ago. I'm a patient man, he replied, pulling back slightly to look at me properly. Some things are worth waiting for. Before I could respond, the elevator jerked suddenly, the main lights flickering back on as power was restored. Reality intruded on our private world as the elevator began to move again, continuing its descent to the lobby. We stepped apart slightly, though Daniel kept hold of my hand, his fingers intertwined with mine. The gesture was small but significant, a bridge between what had just happened and what would come next, a refusal to pretend this moment away. Perfect timing, I said with a nervous laugh, suddenly aware of my rumpled clothing and what must be thoroughly kissed lips. Or terrible timing, Daniel countered with a grin. I was just getting started. The elevator dinged as we reached the lobby, the doors sliding open to reveal the empty, late-night entrance of the building. The security guard glanced up briefly from his desk, then returned to his magazine, uninterested in two workaholics leaving at midnight. We walked through the lobby together, still hand in hand, neither of us quite ready to break the connection. Outside, the night air was cool and fresh after the confined space of the elevator. The city hummed around us, oblivious to the seismic shift that had just occurred in our small corner of the world. "My car's in the parking garage," Daniel said, turning to face me. "Can I drive you home?" The question was simple but loaded with implication. This wasn't just about a ride home. It was about extending this night, about refusing to let this moment end with the elevator doors opening. "I'd like that," I said, making my decision. Whatever complications tomorrow might bring, whatever adjustments we'd need to make to our professional relationship, they were problems for future us. Tonight was about this connection, this unexpected gift of honesty and vulnerability. As we walked toward the parking garage, Daniel squeezed my hand gently. "You know, when I hit that stop button, I had no idea if you'd push me away or if you felt even a fraction of what I've been feeling. I've gotten very good at hiding it," I admitted. "I thought I had to, for both our sakes." "No more hiding," he said, the words both a statement and a question. I looked at him in the soft glow of the streetlights, this man who had been a colleague, then a friend, and now something much more significant. "No more hiding," I agreed. The future stretched before us, full of unknowns and potential complications. Monday morning would come with its own set of challenges as we navigated this new reality within our professional environment. But as we reached his car, as he opened the passenger door for me with a smile that promised so much more to come, I found I wasn't afraid of those complications. Some connections are worth the risk, worth the potential messiness and adjustment. What had started as two people stuck in an elevator at midnight had become something transformative, a beginning rather than an interruption. And as Daniel started the car, as his hand found mine again across the center console, I knew with absolute certainty that whatever came next, we would face it together. The elevator had stopped, but we were just getting started. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was looking forward to seeing where the journey would take us. Total _char_count. 17,531.